QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021 Budgeted Income Statement Reports. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars practice file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view drop-down, selecting the open windows list. In prior presentations, we've been working on the profit and loss budget. We started out by exporting an income statement to Excel, using that to generate our budget, creating it in Excel. Then we used that data to do the data input into the QuickBooks system here, so that we can then run reports within QuickBooks, including reports that would be comparing actual data to budgeted data. So last time, we had entered the data by going to the company financial, budgeting and planning, and set up budgets. And then we went through the entering the budget process. It was the first time to enter the budget, so we had to say it was going to be a profit and loss budget and so on and so forth to get to the budget. And then we entered this data in accordance with the Excel sheet here, which we had created in a prior presentation. So that's where we stand at this point. If you missed those prior two presentations, you probably want to go back and take a look at them as we move forward. Now we're going to be going in and adjust and checking these numbers and then generating the reports for the budgeted reports from them. So if there were any problems, of course, if I go to the report and I say, hey, look, something was data input wrong, I messed up somewhere, then we can go back in here, of course, and just make the adjustment, just like we did when we originally went in, make the adjustment, then run the reports again. So if we have a problem like that, that's what we will do. I expect it to be perfect, obviously, because we did the data input together, and I think we did a good job of it. But in any case, we're going to go to the reports drop-down, and we're going to be generating our budgeting reports now. So we're going to go to the reports, budgets down at the bottom, and then we have these reports. We got the budget overview, we got the budget versus actual, the profit and loss budget performance, and the budget versus actual graph. We want to take a look at the budget overview now so we can check our numbers, and then we'll run the budget versus actual next time. So I'm going to hit the drop down. This is the one we want, so I'll pick that one because it's the income statement. That's the only one we have thus far. We can have it by month here, so that's the only option thus far. So we're going to say continue and finish, and that will generate then, of course, our budget. So here's our budgeted information. I want to kind of check this to the total, so I'd like to go to the end column here and take a look at our total numbers and just basically check that with regards to our totals for the Excel sheet. To do that, I'm just going to run this side by side with Excel here. So let's pick up Excel. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to try to run this side by side. If you have two screens, then of course this would be easier to do. I froze the panes in Excel so I can see these side by side here. And so there's our totals, and I want to go all the way to the total column. So there we have it. So here we have it. We can first start by checking the bottom line number, the net income for the total column. It's probably the easiest number to give us our most verification. So 85,110. It's a little off. Now, it could be rounding that it's off by because we took off the pennies here, but that still looks a bit off because 85,088.1, if I subtract those out, that seems like 18 for rounding. That seems a little high on the rounding. So let's see if there's anything else off here. Probably not a significant difference, but so that looks good, that looks good. We've got the total there. We can check the total by saying that's the 446,792. Then we had the 245, 251, 245, 256. A little bit different, but that's rounding. Then we had the 216 for the bank service charges. So again, that's a little bit off. I would assume it's due to rounding. If I look at each period here, we had 18, so I'm going to assume that's due to the rounding. 210, and then 833, and then if I go back one period, we had 69, so it looks like it might just simply be rounding here. That's the difference. So 14,001 versus 4, and 11,004, so 900, 3,000, looks good. Looks good. Okay, so I think it's just going to be rounding $18. This is an estimate, so that will be fine. I'm going to say that's good. So now we've got this information over here. So we've entered it into our profit and loss report. And obviously we're seeing it basically by default in terms of the months that will be covered. If I was to change the dates up top and just look at, let's say, the 2 months that, or the first quarter, for example, that would be January through 03 31/21. So there we got January, February, March, and the first quarter of information. If I bring this back out, for example, to December 12/31/21, there's for the entire year. Notice up top we have the custom default. If I go to customize reports up top, and we're looking at it by month, I could look at it by total, and this would be the range, the date range total. If I said okay, that would be an easier way for me to basically see that yearly information, the total column that we took a look at. And then if I went to the customize report up top, and we can also, of course, break it out by month. We can break it out by quarter. So I might want to look at it by quarter and say, okay. And then now we've got the 4 quarters broken out, which could be a useful breakout. That's a common kind of breakout that you might see. And then if we go back to the customized reports, the most common breakout, once again, most likely being the months here. So then we have the months, and I'm going to say okay. So let's generate this report. Let's export this report and print this one. So I'm going to do our standard formatting. So I'm going to go back up top. I'm going to go to the header and footer. I'm going to get rid of the time and report basis. So I'll get rid of those 3. I'm going to go to the fonts and numbers, and let's make the negatives red and bracketed, and then remove the pennies. We don't need the pennies there. We didn't add any pennies, so they're not helping anything. Or there might have been pennies on the calculated items up here, but we'll remove those. And there we have it. So that looks good. Let's go ahead and save this as a PDF, and then we'll print it, or we'll save it to Excel. Now note, when we save it to Excel, we're going to have this very long report. So we'll have to do something in order to make this easier to read, because we don't want it on 2 pages long. So this is a problem if I print it to a PDF, because QuickBooks won't easily be able to make that adjustment. So I'm going to say, okay, print the report to a PDF. I'm going to say print, and it's going to ask us where we want to put it. So I'm going to say it's in 10. That looks good. I'm going to say this is the budget for, let's say, 2021. This is the budget for 2021. I'll say save. Now let's export it to Excel. So I'm going to go to the Excel, create a new worksheet, and it's going to ask me where do I want to put it. I'm going to create a new workbook as well, and then we'll put this into it, and then the budget versus actual into it as well. Then we'll think about how we could format these, because of course they are going to be long. The next report we'll look at is the budget versus actual once we print this one in Excel. So here we have it. Let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to say File, Save As, Browse. Going to put it into our folder. It's going to be on the desktop. I'm going to put it into the data files. No, that's not right. Desktop data files and the budgeting folder. So it's going to be in the budget. And then I'm going to call it, let's call this budget reports. Budget reports 2021. We might want it in the same folder that we made our budget on. We could do that. But I'm going to create another one for just the reports that are generated from QuickBooks. So I'm going to say export or save that. And now let's do our standard formatting. First tab, right click on it, deleting the first tab. Go into the second tab. This is going to be the budget. I'll just call it budge. And then I'm going to go to the second layout and say OK. I'm going to go to the view tab up top and say splits. Remove the splits, back to the first view, and so there we have it. It looks like it is fitting. Well, no, it's not fitting on a page. It's got 2 pages, 2 whole pages. So how can we adjust this? We can go to the page layout. We're probably going to have to go to the orientation and make the orientation landscape. So that saves a little room. And then if I just delete all these extra columns, like I don't need really, well, I definitely don't need H. I'm holding down Control, J, L, N, P, R, T, V, X, Z, B, A, B, and A, D. Don't need those. Letting go of Control, right-click in the selected area and deleting. So I'm going to delete. I'm going to delete that. Delete comment. Delete. And so there we have that. Now, if it still didn't fit on one page, we can do some more adjusting on these rows and use different formatting for this adjustment. So I won't do that now. We might need that in the next report. So let's close this back up. I'm going to say save, and I'll make this large, minimize this, and then I'm going to open the next report, reports drop down, budgeting, and we want to take a look at the budget versus actual this time. Budget versus actual for the profit and loss, account by month. So we'll keep the account by month and finish. So there we have it. And now, of course, if I look at the entire year, we don't have any data past February. So there is nothing happening past February because we've entered actual data for January and February and nothing past then. So now once the time has passed, QuickBooks is able to run a report like this comparing what has happened on the budget side of things to the the total, that what actually happened, actual versus budget. So this is one of the nice reports. This is why you put it into QuickBooks, so you can run comparisons nice and easily like this. So I'm going to go to Customize Reports up top. Now we could say let's see it in total and take it from January just to February, because those are the 2 months that have passed for the current year so far, 02/28/21. And we could say then OK. And so now we're looking from January through February. We have the actual numbers versus the budget. And then it's going to subtract the two out to see the difference between actual and budget. And then we've got the percent as well. So the percent being, if I pull out the trusty calculator here, huge trusty calculator, we have the actual, what actually happened here, 1500 divided by what we budgeted to happen, 1537.5. And that's going to give us our 96.6%. So this percentage is basically saying here's how close we were on a percentage basis. So on a dollar difference, we're going to say, hey, here's the dollar difference that we had on what we budgeted that was going to happen versus what actually did happen. And notice we're dead on a lot of the expenses, which of course you would kind of expect to be a lot of the times if you make the same payment, although it will vary, to some degree down here. And then up top, we're off on the income, which again, the income is going to vary from time period to time period, and the cost of goods sold will be varying from time period to time period. So we have our 2 month kind of variation, because this is what has happened year to date up until this point in time. And then we can do a month by month type of comparison. So I can go to the Customize Reports up top. We can say, okay, let's bring this back out to months. So I want to do month by month. 2 months have passed. And notice by default, it's going to show the difference in the percentage change, because that's typically what you would want with a comparative report. So I'm going to say OK. So now we have the 2 month time period. Here's January, what actually happened versus the budget. And so notice we didn't have any equipment or revenue or guitar lesson revenue. So the budget was obviously much higher at that point because, we didn't have those. And then down here we have the sales were higher in January and the service was higher in January. And then we have the February numbers over here. So here's the percent change. And then we have the February numbers, what actually happened compared to what budgeted happened, the difference between the two. And then again, your percentages. So you can go through here and you can do some kind of comparisons between what you budgeted to happen and then what actually happened, and then you can basically use that to budget out further into the future. So this report again is really the thing that's going to be different. Than it's a little bit more difficult to do that in Excel, right? We could export the data and do that in Excel, but the ability to have this kind of generated for itself as we go, budget versus actual type of report within the QuickBooks system is nice. So now let's just go ahead and format this and export this one. I'm going to go to the Customize Report. I'm going to go to the header and footer. We're going to remove the date, time, and report basis as is the norm. We're going to go then to the fonts, and we're going to say this is going to be red with brackets or parentheses, removing the pennies, and there we have it. So let's take that. Let's go ahead and export it to Excel. We're going to go to Excel. We're going to create a new worksheet, but this time it's going to be in the existing workbook that we had created last time. So there it is. So we're going to go existing workbook, browse, because I think I'm going to have to change the location. I want to bring this, I want to go back up. So if I go back here, I want to go to section 11, and then I want the reports. This one, double clicking on that. Then we're going to export this out to that same workbook as we've seen in the past. So there we have it. I'm going to take this sheet and pull it to the right. I'm going to delete the first tab that we don't need. Right click on those instruction tab, delete it. Double clicking on the new sheet. I'm going to say this is the budge verse actual. And then we'll go to the second view so that I can then see the panes and where the splits are. So I'm going to go to the View tab up top, Windows, remove the splits, go to the second, back to the first normal view, see where our page breaks will be, and then do our adjustments, go into the page layout, orientation, landscape. Then I'm going to remove all the added rows, H, holding down Control, J, holding down Control, L, N, P, R, T, V, X, Z, and AB, letting go of Control, right click on that area and delete it. And that doesn't quite do it. So this time I might want to adjust some of the formatting here. So I might say, hey, look, I don't need all these columns. I'm just going to use the indent feature to deal with all these columns. So I'm going to say this, I want it all in column F. So I'm just hitting Control X or cut, and I'm just going to paste wherever the home point is to column F. We don't need this gradation done by columns. We could do the gradation another way. So wherever there's an item, wherever it starts, that's where the actual cell is input. And I'm just gonna cut it and put them all into F. So just gonna cut and paste all of these, which is somewhat tedious, but is what it is. There is a faster way to do this, but it can look kind of confusing to do, and I don't want to be confused. Like I can select all of these, for example, and say cut and paste them here. I could say cut and paste here. Notice you could just, have taken row by row, cutting all of them and pasting them. But again, that can look funny. So I won't do it here. So anyways, we're just going to cut these and paste them over. Cut these two. Paste them here. I'm going to cut that. Paste it here. Cut and paste. Cut and paste. And then cut and paste. Then I can get rid of all these A to E. I don't need those. Right click and delete those. And then if I want the indentations, if I want some more indentation, like this is ordinary income and expenses, I might say, okay, then these should be indented. I'll go to the Home tab, Alignment, and indent them this way. And then total income, maybe I indent that twice. And then cost of goods sold, I'll keep that, where it is. Gross profit here, and then the expenses, you could, there's no subcategory that they gave me there for the expenses, so I'm not sure you need another indentation. Maybe the expense indent, ordinary income, and so on. So you can start to format your own basically indentations in that format if you so choose. So this total up top seems to not add any data, so I'm going to delete that whole row. I don't see how that's helping me at all, so we'll delete that. And now we're basically on one page there, so that looks good. So those are our major two reports. Now let's go ahead and print this out. Again, I can print it over here in QuickBooks. I'll do it by sending it to a PDF. So report, and then I'm going to send it to the PDF printer, and it's going to ask me where do I want to put it. I'm going to say, there it is. So I'm going to say this is going to be, let's call it, I'll bring this down a bit so I could see it. This, I'm going to say P and L budget versus actual. actual. So there we go. And then I'll save that. And then this Excel sheet, we can then print these two on one tab again. So I could go, okay, file. Let's go. Well, before we do that, we'll actually do the budgets for the balance sheet next time, and then we'll add those to this report, and then we'll continue on from that point. So these two reports, the income statement, again, if you don't do anything else and you just want to start with your budgeting process, you're probably thinking income statement, and then you might want to think of cash flow a little bit separate, because cash flow is going to be on a cash basis versus income statement on an accrual basis. So when you think about performance, income statement, accrual basis typically. When you think about cash flow, making sure you have enough cash to keep flowing, then you might do some alterations for a cash flow basis. We might talk a little bit more about that after we complete the budgeting process here, which is basically on an accrual basis. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to close this, and we'll get back to it when we get to the profit and loss for the balance sheet.